Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Today, we are thrilled to have invited two prominent speakers who have been making a series of inventions and discoveries. They enable us to see the unseen at the functional and the molecular levels, which are now accelerating disease diagnosis and evaluation, as well as advancing drug development. It's my pleasure and a privilege to introduce both speakers. Our first speaker is Dr. Cooley at Martino Center. Dr. Cooley is an instructor of radiology in the Martino Center at MGH and Harvard Medical School. Originally from South Texas, Dr. Cooley moved to Boston for her bachelor's degree and a PhD from the MIT in EE, Electronic Engineering. Dr. Cooley began her work on portable MRI during grad school and have continued work during postdoc and her current role as a faculty at MGH. Dr. Cooley's work is also highlighted by a report in the Science Rehashed in collaboration with our Open Box Science. Now the floor is yours, Dr. Cooley.
Thank you very much for the introduction and for the invitation to speak here. Let me try to share my screen now. Okay, just want to make sure that looks okay. Okay, great. Okay, so I'll be speaking about a portable MRI scanner for brain imaging that we've been working on. Okay, so I'm faculty at the Martino Center for Biomedical Imaging at MGH. So the Martino Center is MGH research campus in the Charlestown Navy Yard, and we have about 100 faculty researchers. I specifically am in the magnetic resonance physics and instrumentation group, or the MRPIGs, and I specifically am in the portable MRI subgroup. So here I'm showing the other members of this group that have been contributing to the work that I'm showing today. We're led by Larry Wald. The other faculty members are Jason Stockman and Stephen Colley and myself. And I'm also showing our former graduate students, Patrick McDaniel and Abitha Srinivas, who contributed largely to the work I'm going to be showing today. So the biggest drawback of traditional MRI is the lack of accessibility. Conventional MRI scanners cost millions of dollars and weigh tens of tons. And siting and installation is very difficult and expensive because it requires the construction of a special shielded room and the installation of a quench pipe for the superconducting magnet. And so installation can cost $500,000 on its own. It also requires the installation of special power services also liquid helium cooling is needed for the superconducting magnet. And this means that MRI really cannot be used in most locations. So our motivation is really to develop a portable low-cost MRI scanner. There are many unconventional locations and applications where MRI diagnostics or monitoring, especially for the brain, would be very useful. For example, at a patient's bedside, in a field hospital or urgent care centers or ambulance. And these are cases where a low-cost portable MRI device would be very useful. And although it would be great to acquire super high resolution images with a portable device, high resolution imaging is not always needed. And it is really worthwhile to consider trading off some functionality for accessibility to be used in more locations and to expand the use to a greater patient population. So we can start thinking of MRI on a spectrum of functionality versus size and cost. So high performance 3T scanners are wonderful. They're really important diagnostic tools and create beautiful images, but they're really only available in radiology suites in large hospitals. So we're starting to think about functionality and performance that we could trade off to make MRI more accessible for specialized and dedicated applications for use in low resource settings or at the point of care. So our goal that I'm going to be talking about specifically today is to design purpose-built, low-cost portable MRI systems for brain imaging. And the aim is to enable MRI in new location with limited space, power, and funding, and make the scanner transportable to the point of care. So this means it needs to be cryogen-free with no safety exclusion zone and can be operated from a standard power outlet, or make the scanner easily citable. So it could be used in even an ambulance or a doctor's office or things like battlefield hospitals or rural clinics. And of course, for increased accessibility, the scanner also needs to be low cost. And the applications are really include any case where you need to quickly image the brain on site instead of transporting to a central radiology center in a hospital. And so some of the applications, for example, in adults might be in the emergency department, ambulance, or in a field hospital to look at things like intracranial bleeding, look at the infarct volume in acute stroke, or do a mass effect check. Another example would be for use in bed in the neuro ICU as a monitor to look for bleeding, or to monitor progress in cancer treatment for brain tumors and looking at edema. In pediatrics, an important application that we're interested in is looking at neonatal hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, or HIE, at the bedside in the neonatal ICU. Another important application is looking at hydrocephalus and following the progression in low resource settings. So we're not the only ones motivated by these goals. There are several other research groups working on more accessible MRI. And notably, there's also some commercial point of care MRI products now. I'm showing on the left the Synaptive Every scanner, which is a midfield scanner at 0.5 T. It uses a cryogen-free superconducting magnet and has a really small footprint compared to conventional scanners, and this makes it much easier to cite. And of course, there's the very impressive Hyperfine Swoop scanner on the right, which is now FDA approved. And this uses a lower field magnet at 65 millitesla. And it's very portable and can be transported to patient's bedside and operated from a standard wall outlet. So these are a few of the scanners that we've been working on. On the left is the Hallbox cylinder scanner, which I'm going to be talking about in more detail. And then we're also working on the center here, this Hallbox bulb design, which is more compact at 50 kilograms. And on the right is a single-sided system that images a smaller region of the brain. And we're calling that the MR cap, and that only weighs 7 kilograms. So this system here is the one I'm going to be talking about in more detail, and it was recently published in Nature Biomedical Engineering. Okay, so I'm going to kind of start by giving just an overview of our method for this portable Hallbox cylinder scanner. So it's really the most important component that's really based around is this permanent magnet array. And the permanent magnet array combines both the B0 field, which is the main polarizing field in an MR scanner, and also a spatial encoding field, which is used for spatially encoding the images. And we're able to make this magnet really lightweight and mobile by specially designing it to fit, around the head only, and using permanent magnets, which require no power or cooling. And we allow the magnet to be low field and inhomogeneous, which is really important for making it compact. To do the image encoding, we use 3D rare sequences, which use a train of spin echo pulses. And we do 2D phase encoding with compact, efficient gradient coils that are built into the system. But the readout encoding, which is generally the most power-hungry encoding field of the MR system, is created with this built-in nonlinear gradient into the permanent magnet. So no additional coils or amplifiers are needed for that encoding field. That's called the readout field, and using the built-in readout and the permanent magnet eliminates the coil system. And this really greatly reduces the power and the cooling needs of the scanner, and also very much reduces the acoustic noise that anyone who's ever had an MR scan is very familiar with. Finally, because we have this nonlinear field, we use a special image reconstruction method that uses a general encoding matrix approach to reconstruct the images, as opposed to the traditional FFT approach. So here's a drawing of our system components, as well as some photos on the right. The total system weight is 230 kilograms, so it's very lightweight compared to traditional scanners. And you can see it's also very compact compared to traditional scanners. The main scanner components are the RF coil, the permanent magnet, the gradient coils, and then the RF shield. And I'll be talking about each of these components a little bit more. So the first component, which I mentioned is sort of the most important, is the permanent magnet that creates the B0 magnet, or the main polarizing field. And so for this design, we used a dipole Hallbox cylinder design. In an ideal Hallbox cylinder, we have this rotating magnet polarization along the cylinder, and it creates a transverse field, transverse B field in the center, with a very well-contained flux. And the fact that the flux is really well contained in the magnet is really advantageous for a portable system, because it means you don't have to worry very much about stray fields. Basically, just a few centimeters away from the magnet, the field is very low, so you don't have to worry about other instrumentation in the room being attracted to the magnet. To actually build the Hallbox cylinder, we had to discretize the magnets. And we did that into these rectangular rungs. And of course, because an ideal Hallbox cylinder is infinitely long, that we want it to be compact and for design around the head only. So that means that it's quite short, and the field falls off along the Y direction. So it falls off at the shoulders, for example, and above the head. So to account for this, we added a booster ring of permanent magnets around the neck, and we extended the length of the cylinder above the head asymmetrically to increase the field above the head. So to actually design the magnet, we set up this optimization problem with the aim of limiting the total field variation, because it's difficult to excite and measure the MR signal if you have too much field variation in the field of view. So we aim to limit the total field variation, but at the same time, we wanted to create this linear, limited field variation in the field of view to do the readout and image encoding. So to do this, we used a genetic algorithm optimization approach, where we first started off with 888 possible locations for 1-inch permanent magnet cubes. And the permanent magnets we use are neodymium iron boron magnets, which are basically the strongest types of rare earth permanent magnets that you can use. So there's 888 possible locations, and we use the algorithm to determine whether in each of those locations we want to put an air spacer, an N42 grade magnet, or N52 grade magnet, which is the stronger grade. And we constrained the problem to create a field in our field of view that is greater than 70 millitesla. So that was sort of like the minimum field that we wanted for our magnet. And we also, in our fitness function for the optimization, we tried to minimize the B0 range and create a monotonic X variation for the readout encoding. So the resulting magnet design is actually shown on the upper right. So you can see the distribution of the two different neodymium magnet grades. And on the bottom is the measured field map. And the oval outline is roughly the shape of, the size of a brain in the field of view. And so you can see that our field is, about 79 millitesla. And we have this variation across the X direction that we want to use for the image encoding. So here's some photos of us actually building the magnet. So to do this, we first created the magnet former, which we did using these ABS rings that we water jet cut the squares into for the rectangular rungs, as well as some other places for support material and shimming magnets, which I'll mention in a second. So we created the former, put it together with some brass rods and fiberglass tubes. And then we use these green fiberglass square tubes which to hold the actual permanent magnet. So first we built the former, and then we pushed each of these 1-inch permanent magnets into the tubes in the configuration that was determined by the optimization, and bolted them into place. And here's the resulting magnet shown on the bottom right. So we also did a second stage optimization. So the linearity of the field that we created wasn't great. You can see that on the top right, it was quite non-linear. So to account for this, we created these shim trays with very small permanent magnets and did another optimization procedure to improve the linearity. So on the bottom, you can see with the addition of the shim magnets, we have still a non-linear encoding field, but the linearity is improved. So here's the resulting magnet specs. So again, it's made out of these neodymium N52 and N42 grade magnets. It has 48 magnet rungs. The bore diameter is about 35 centimeters. The bore diameter at the shoulder, because of that booster ring of magnets, is a little bit smaller at 29 centimeters. The length of the cylinder is 48 centimeters, and the outer diameter is 56 centimeters. The weight of the magnet is only 122 kilograms, and the average field is 80 millitesla. So again, this is quite a low field compared to conventional scanners, which are generally 1.5 T or 3 T. Okay, so we use that built-in permanent magnet for one of the encoding directions in the X direction, but to encode in the other 2 dimensions to create 2 3D images, we use coils to create gradient fields called gradient coils in the Y and the Z directions. So we designed 2 efficient gradient coils to create the image encoding fields in those directions. And to design the coils, we optimized the current path on the inner and the outer surface of a 2-tiered cylinder, which tightly fits into the permanent magnet. And the current path was optimized to create a linear field for those encoding directions. So first, the current density is determined with a BEM stream function method. And then we convert to realistic winding patterns. And then finally, we construct the gradient coil. So here's the gradient coil on the left here. So our method for building these is to 3D print flat surfaces that get folded into the desired shape and have the optimized coil windings printed as grooves. And then we press fit the magnet wire into the grooves to form the coil. So I'm showing the coil photo on the left, and on the right, one of the graphics is a little messed up, sorry about that, but I'm showing the wire patterns and the resulting gradient field patterns. Okay, so another important component is the RF coil. So this is the coil that does the RF excitation and also measures the MR signal. And we use a transmit receive coil, so we use a single compact spiral helmet coil to do both the transmit and the receive. And this is the design that our community has sort of found to work pretty well in these low field systems. And to construct it, again, we 3D print a former, and then we wind the wire into the predetermined printed grooves in the former. And then the coil is tuned and matched to our frequency. We use this variable turn density in our coil that was optimized to improve the RF homogeneity in that region of the brain. So our method for the image acquisition is shown here. So this is a pulse sequence diagram. It's a 3D rare sequence, which is a train of spin echoes. And again, we do phase encoding using the GY and the GZ gradient coils. So we use these gradient pulses to encode the image in those dimensions. But then we use, for our readout encoding, we use this built-in permanent magnet gradient that's always on. We use a special type of RF pulse for the excitation also and the refocusing. And so these pulses are frequency swept to excite a wide bandwidth, which is necessary because we have this permanent magnet gradient that's always on. So here are some of our first results. This is showing an image of a grapefruit. So you can see that it's a pretty decent image, you know, in this very compact low field scanner. You can see the segments of the grapefruit and some of the seeds. And the image is, you know, not really distorted. It's about, you know, the right shape for a grapefruit. And this took about 16 minutes to acquire. However, we do have nonlinear fields, especially towards the edge of our field of view. And this creates some spatial deformation when we look at larger samples. So here is one of our first human brain images. You can see that it's quite distorted towards the edges. And this is because we have these nonlinearities in our magnet. So to account for this, we use a generalized image reconstruction approach that's based on an encoding matrix model. And this is based on this time domain signal equation for the MR signal that's shown on the right here. And the main takeaway here is that we make use of measured encoding field maps. We actually measure all of our fields from the B0 magnet and the gradient coils and build these into the model. And then we use this general encoding matrix model and solve for this, this variable M, which is the image. And this comes down to being a linear inverse problem, which we use preconditioned conjugate gradients to solve for. And it takes about less than 20 seconds when it's implemented with the GPU. So using that reconstruction method, here are some of our resulting in vivo human images. The top image, top 3D image took about 19 minutes to acquire with 4 averages. The bottom 2 took about 10 minutes because they used 2 averages instead. Here I'm showing 3 different types of contrast in the same subject, so T1, T2, and proton density. And I want to point out that in these preliminary images, these were all acquired in an RF shielded room, which to really enable true point of care imaging, we have to get rid of actually. You know, we want to be able to push this scanner into a patient's room and image at the point of care, which means we need to operate outside of the shielded room. So this is something that we're currently working on. So it comes down to some mitigation method for electromagnetic interference. So we're working on a retrospective method where we use these external pickup coils that we position around the magnet to measure external electromagnetic interference and then retrospectively remove those signals from the image. And I'm showing some preliminary results here with the image in the middle with EMI. You can see this streak down the middle of the image. And this is from an EMI source that we introduced. And on the right, I'm showing what the image looks like with our correction method. So we're making progress on this. So in summary, we've introduced an MRI scanner architecture based on a compact, lightweight, permanent magnet array with a built-in field variation for MRI readout encoding. The system does not require cryogenic or water cooling, and the scanner fits on a small cart and is very portable and operates from a standard power outlet. And we leverage an advanced image reconstruction method to correct for magnetic field imperfections that are caused by the very compact system. And this essentially frees the hardware from some of the traditional constraints of conventional MRI scanners. Altogether, these things result in a scanner that's small, low power, quiet, and safe due to the self-shielded low field magnet. And altogether, this could allow for true point of care MRI imaging and hopefully expand access to MRI to underserved patient populations. So I want to thank our funding sources and acknowledge the team working on this project. And again, thank you very much for inviting me and for listening.
great presentation. Thank you. So any questions by typing or speak? So Dr. Cooley, I have a question because I'm from the background of pathology and neuroscience. I wonder of this your new device, what do you envision, like in collaboration or you investigating brain disorders, maybe from preclinical, your end goal is on human, but have you thought about in preclinical animal models as a whole body imaging, whether the resolution will be possible?
That's a good question. We actually really haven't done any preclinical studies with the system actually, and I think, I mean, it's definitely possible to do some animal imaging with this. You know, I think that the resolution needed for imaging small animals like mice is probably not there, especially for if you're trying to image the brain. So I don't know if that's it's not the best application for this system specifically, but this approach to designing these dedicated low cost compact MR systems for special applications, this approach could definitely be geared towards something like that.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I see a question in the chat that says, "Could you let us know the cost of your device?" This is kind of a hard question to answer because with the equipment that we're kind of currently using in the lab, the cost is higher than it would be if it was sort of developed into a product, because we're using just like general lab equipment. But I would say it's like on the order of with the equipment we're using now would be on the order of about $60,000, maybe a little bit more.
Do you think you can share your vision for this device in the next 5 or 10 years?
Oh, sure. So this specific device, I think we want to try to do imaging studies with specific patient populations to figure out to show the applications where it would be very useful. I'm also starting work on a new project for a dedicated MRI scanner for the neonatal ICU, which I kind of hinted to. And I'm really excited about this scanner because this is the neonatal ICU is the patient population there is really generally very sick and very fragile and very, very difficult to transport to radiology for scanning. And this really prevents brain imaging during a time in their life where it's really important, when they really need imaging for these patients with HIE. So I'm really excited to start work on a dedicated scanner for imaging that patient population directly at the bedside, to bringing the scanner to them and having a very easy transfer from the incubator to the scanner without any unnecessary disruption to their care.
Thank you for sharing your vision. I know you're very busy at home with your daughter, son, and dog. Look forward to your future from your description.
Right.
Yeah, congratulations again for your publication accomplishment, and we look forward to your future research. Thank you.
Thank you.